Okay, well, it's my very great pleasure to welcome Louise Edington to Astrology and Cinema. We have got some exciting movies lined up today. Now, before I get into the movies, I just want to talk about Louise's new book series. If you haven't got your copy, you need to get it. Oh, and don't forget to write reviews. Now, us authors are always talking about, please write reviews. It's so important for our work, to help get our work out there. And our Astrology in Cinema is about real life people who have been portrayed by an actor in a biopic. And a lot of those biopics are in Mirror Mirror. But Back to Black is a recent biopic released only in 2024. That's a couple years after Mirror Mirror was released. But we do have a good one of my favorites, which is The Doors, about Jim Morrison, starring the delectable Val Kilmer. Louise and I were just talking about how much we love Val. So anyway, welcome to
Yes,
Astrology.
I love him.
Welcome to
And Jim
Astrology.
Morrison, actually, as
Yes.
well.
Welcome to Astrology and Cinema in real life. Grab your popcorn, sit down, and have a chat with us. We got some charts to talk about and a little bit of lustful fantasies to share with you as we go through this. So we're going to start with Louise's favorite film, or one of her favorite films, and that's The Doors, directed by Oliver Stone, starring Val Kilmer as the Lizard King himself. Louise, what did you love about this movie?
Well, I mean,
Here
I
comes
love
the
The
list.
Doors, and I love The Doors. I love Val Kilmer. I love Jim Morrison. Jim Morrison and I have some interesting chart connections, not the least of which is his sun is conjunct my Jupiter, and we also have I love how the movie starts with his experience with the accident with the native elder, because that's kind of echoed in my own life later on. My first experience with Indigenous people here in this country was I was invited to a sweat lodge, and I had no idea what a sweat lodge was at the time, but it was actually a native elder sweat lodge where we built it in the woods and then sweated together. And I had the visions like Jim Morrison did, but Jim Morrison felt like that he took in the soul of the native elder. I didn't quite get that far, but we've got all those kind of shamanic kind of music, kind of psychedelic experiences as well. I've had a few of those too. So
I think his words
so I
were
like how
he felt that the
sorry,
elder jumped into him. That's what is how he described it. It's a very
he
interesting
did. Yeah,
experience. I've done some work
yeah.
on mystic moments,
Hmm.
moments when people have felt like they've walked
Hmm.
in to something, but I haven't heard anybody
Hmm.
say they felt a spirit jumped into them. Um,
Mm.
almost like a possession, almost, but it's more than that. It's more
Yeah.
like he felt it's kind of like
Hmm.
it took over him or sort of blended in with him. And yeah, I thought that was an
Well,
interesting
I
experience.
did, I did have a strong vision of a native elder in one of those very early sweat lodges, and that's always stayed with me. I never felt it came into me, but it's always been with me. So, yeah.
Mm,
Hmm.
wow, amazing.
Mm,
Are any
yeah.
films, any of these scenes that stay with you? Can you remember anything that
Mm.
particularly stands out? Um,
Oh gosh, so many. Um, you know, I loved his kind of wandering out in the wilderness,
mm,
kind of on his own little vision quest. Do you remember that bit when he went kind of
yeah,
wandered off on his own? And his girlfriend, whose name I cannot remember,
Pamela
was going,
Corson.
"Where are you going? Where are you going, Jim?" kind of thing.
It was
Yeah.
Pamela Corson.
And he was,
I thought
yeah.
miscast. Meg Ryan played her, and I thought there wasn't a
Mm.
good fit. But there was
Yeah.
synastry between the two. But we're not talking about Pam tonight. But I thought Meg
Yeah.
Ryan she was going through that America's Sweetheart um,
She was.
phase,
Yeah.
and I didn't think
Yeah.
that she seemed to she was too sweet for that role. I thought. It's just my opinion.
I think you're probably right. Yeah, I think you're probably right. But I probably wasn't paying too much attention to her either.
There's another scene where I'm a Janis Joplin fan, and we were talking about the Club of 27 just
Yeah.
before we started. But Janis Joplin
Mm,
and Jim Morrison and Amy Winehouse are members of the Club of 27. So just to quickly explain what that means is that they died at the age of
mm,
27. But what was going on astrologically is they had Uranus trine its natal position when they died. And
mm,
that's before their Saturn return. So the experience is they have this great
mhm,
big hit of rebelliousness before they have the
mhm,
maturity to sort of be sensible about these sorts of adventures. So unfortunately, all three of them,
mm.
and there's more members of the Club of 27 that
Oh,
died through recklessness.
mm,
Brian Jones,
yeah,
Kurt Cobain. Um,
yeah.
there's
There's quite
Jimi
a lot.
Hendrix.
Mhm.
So there are quite a few.
Yeah.
There's another scene where
And and you know, I kind of had that. I was very rebellious in that way in around that time as well, and I kind of straightened out on my Saturn return. Luckily, I made it to my Saturn return, shall I say. I was not like as far as some of them, of course, though, but yeah, but
hmm,
pretty much. So I think that's why I love him, love the movie. We have this kind of like, ooh, everything kind of speaks to me, these similar life experiences. It's kind of weird. And I love music, I'm always going to see rock bands. So
yeah, that's right. You are quite the rock chick. What the movie?
hmm
Sorry, the scene that I remember was he had been having an affair with a witch. Let's just call her a witch, not like the Wicked Witch of the East or anything like that, but a pagan witch. And Pamela
Yeah.
Corson had been taking some drugs, and she says, "You stuck your dick in her?" And she takes a great big spoonful of mashed potatoes and throws it at him. And very comically, it hits him right in the face, right in the eye. And I thought, well, this could have been a powerful scene, but they made it,
Mhm.
comedic, which I thought was a bit of a mistake. I
Yeah.
think they should have played that one out for the drama that it was. And then Janis
Yeah.
Joplin, a member of Club of 27, made a very, very brief appearance as this kind of crazy girl, at this party. But Janice and Jim in real
Mhm.
life were apparently lovers. He told her she couldn't
Mhm.
sing the blues, and she had a bottle of Southern Comfort, and she knocked him out with it. So there's that connection between them. But obviously, didn't make such a big deal of it in the film. But Oliver Stone was kind
Yeah,
of riding on a wave when this film came out. He
he
Platoon,
was.
and there was loads of other films. So this really was kind of
Mm,
a departure from his Fourth
mm,
of July. Of course, it had because of the Vietnam War and stuff like that. It had that connection, but the musicality of
yeah.
it all was very different to his other
Mm,
movies. But what I want to point out is that Val Kilmer, who played Jim Morrison, actually sang in this film, and he was amazing. Not to mention, he
mm.
looked really good in those leather trousers.
He looked amazing. Yes. And I love him as much as I love Jim Morrison. So win-win for me. So and they have quite interesting chart connections as we're going to see. So
Yes. Okay. Let's talk about Jim for a minute, and we can talk also about your
Mm,
connections. Because one thing I encourage people to do is, if you are a fan of
mhm,
a celebrity, to have a little look at the synastry. What is it
mhm,
about them that attracts you to them? Is there, as Louise is
mhm.
going to explain in a second, she has this Sagittarian connection with Jim. So this is Jim's natal
and
chart.
and and my moon is at 12 Gemini and his Mars is at 12 Gemini.
Ooh, very nice. Okay, so let me point these out. So is your Jupiter on
Hmm
his sun? Is that right? So we got this over here. He's 15 degrees
Yeah. Mhm.
Sagittarius. Yeah. And so
Yeah, my Jupiter is 14, so very
that's
close.
that's
Yeah.
a conjunction if I ever heard of one.
Yeah.
And remembering that
hmm
Jupiter rules Sagittarius. So it makes it
hmm
extra punchy. And then Louise was saying
hmm
her what was your
My
which planet?
moon, my moon.
Louise's moon in
Moon,
Gemini.
my moon.
Moon is
Yeah, and my
conjunct
black
Mars.
moon Lilith. And
Amazing.
my black moon Lilith is exactly conjunct his Mars. And his moon is on my IC. We both have Venus in Scorpio, which is kind of very Shall we say snaky,
Sexy.
snaky sexy? Yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's the main connect. That's about it. His Neptune is quite close to my North Node. I have a 0 Libra North Node too. So.
That's got to be good for the romance and the fantasies and dreams and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
my specialism is looking at Jupiter, and you know, when I see somebody with Jupiter in Leo, oh, by the way, his Jupiter is on my moon. So you know,
Oh.
we're nice, huh? So we're talking about somebody who's a natural performer, who actually grows and who learns through being on stage. And you know, I can think of this one incident where he briefly flashed a crowd and ended up in jail for it. He has to learn, and times when he was too inebriated to perform as well. He had to learn how to almost contain all that, but yet he was definitely the front man of the Doors. Everybody adored him, and he just had such a stage presence. And for Val
Oh.
Kilmer to come along and step into that, I thought that was, something really special and spectacular. And of course, Jim was
And I think
also.
that's. Can I say that Scorpio? The Scorpio midheaven and the 8th house Neptune in Libra, I think that's that walk-in energy of this kind of medicine man, shaman, elder kind of energy. There you go. Because I share similar placements as well. So.
I was going to say about his poetry. He's also known for, his wonderful lyrics and books of poetry that he wrote. He's got a lot of Gemini energy, and the Saturn in there too speaks about his ability to, the discipline to write it all down. I think it's extremely. We always say, astrologers always say that the chart speaks, or it walks, the person, even if they don't believe in astrology, the chart still speaks, what they're living. And the moon in Taurus.
I was just about to say the moon in Taurus. That kind of speaks to me as his physicality. He kind of expressed his words through his physicality as well as everything, as well as his words.
Because he wasn't like really like a mover on stage, like Mick Jagger's a mover and a dancer.
No.
He kind of came
Oh
out
no,
there.
he was more of a slinker.
Yeah.
He's a bit like a slinky, like how they move.
I know exactly how he moves. Yes. Oh, and look at that. Pluto in Leo conjunct the North Node. Talk about having that hypnotic effect on the audience. Being able to really get out there and command that stage, and all the women just kind of well, and I think the men too would just be absolutely enthralled by his performances. He just had that effect on everybody. And he's got Mercury in Capricorn. I'm not really sure how he played that one out, because I don't think he was much of a businessman, but maybe he just had a way of making his words work for him, which I think might be how he expressed, that poetry. He just had a way of.
But also it's a 0 degree Mercury in Capricorn. So, I always think of that as a very, like the Fool card in the tarot, quite naive, will take the leap, and somehow it just seems to work out.
I think that's numbers. The early degrees, they're just starting to get used to the sign, so they might see a little bit of the energy from the previous sign. In Jim's case, it would be maybe he's bringing in the Sagittarius stuff as well. But so that's really Jim's chart. I mean, Louise and I could both go on for hours about a person's chart, but that's just kind of the headlines. But let's bring Val Kilmer in to the mix. Be calm, Louise. Don't get too excited. Here we go. So this is Val Kilmer, and again, let's just say, he is embodying Jim Morrison. He lived like Jim all during the whole entire shoot. he, wore those tight leather trousers. Don't know how he managed that, but that's what he did. And, I think he made everybody address him as Jim. He was a method actor, and, he stayed in character for that whole entire time. So, let's look at a few things that he was tapping into. Would you
Can I
like to?
just say
Yep, absolutely.
Can I just say he and I are he's born maths 17 days after me, so we share a lot of placements, an awful lot of placements. Almost identical degrees for some of the slower moving planets. So anyway.
Wow. Well, I mean, I got to say that the first thing that caught my eye was Val Kilmer's Jupiter and Sagittarius. Like you said, you also have Jupiter and Sagittarius conjunct Jim's sun, but we got the extra boost of Mars there as well. Mars is really, if I say banging it, it's right there. And so it's a combination of Val Kilmer's sexiness. I think Jim Morrison is sexy enough, but Val Kilmer really turned it up a notch.
He did, and that the Mercury right there as well. Jupiter, Mars, and Mercury all in Sag. No wonder he sang it himself. He
knew all the songs, all the lyrics. He had just totally channeled the whole entire sense of being into being Jim Morrison. Like I said, it was one of those. I like biopics when they're done so well that I'm watching the person perform and I completely forget that they are not just an actor. I forget, the suspension of belief has happened to such an extent that I think I'm watching the real life person. And that's definitely the feeling I got.
I did too, but I think for me, because I love them both, it was like, I just immersed myself in it, like Val Kilmer did, really, and in the role. I felt like I was really back there because we share all these connections too. So anyway, and he's got the Venus in Scorpio too, that kind of snaky kind of movements as well.
This may point that out. So here's Jim's Venus in early degrees of Scorpio, and here's Val Kilmer's in the later degrees of Scorpio, and so really nicely sort of showing the Jim is just starting to learn how to be a Scorpio, but Val Kilmer has it in a later degree, so he really has learned how to be a Venus in Scorpio. And I thought the Sun conjunct Saturn was interesting in Val Kilmer's chart because he was a method actor, and all the hard work and that sort of loss of self, I think played out when he took on the role of Jim Morrison.
I would agree, and his IC is close enough to Jim's moon, so he was able to really bring him up from his kind of depths, if you like. He was a great pick for it. He was the only pick for it, I would probably say. Probably the only person that could have done it of anybody actors I can think of.
I don't think anybody else could have done it. I really don't. Who else? I mean, I don't know off the top of my head who else auditioned for this, but Val Kilmer had done Top Gun by the time The Doors came along.
Yeah.
And when I heard Val Kilmer was going to play Jim Morrison, I thought, okay, he might bear a vague resemblance to Jim Morrison, but I didn't think he was going to be able to pull it off. And I definitely wasn't expecting a voice. In fact, I thought Val Kilmer was dubbing. I didn't think that he was singing at all.
Yeah.
But come to find out, he really was. I don't know, really, and we'll never find out if casting directors actually use astrology. But what I found in having viewed over 200 biopics is that it all speaks to astrology. And it's you can't say, okay, well, there's no astrology work because nobody's actively using it. Well, it just seems to me that when a casting director is looking for a certain part and the actor is playing that part, that's what they're seeing. They're not actually applying the astrology. It just happens to be there. And the casting director
Yeah.
understands, there is a match without using the astrology. But I think if they use astrology a little bit more, they could maybe perhaps time releases a little bit better so that they're more
Yeah, they
likely to win awards and they're more likely to get more attention. So let's have a look at
mm,
the release of this film because it was, I think Val was at least nominated for several awards for this film. I don't think
mm.
it got an Oscar. I can't remember. I should have checked before I started talking, but
I don't
um,
I
I
don't
don't think so
remember.
because it would have been
No.
in 1991, and I can't remember which movie was in 1991. I'm sure some viewer will put it in the comments and um, help us out a little bit. But it didn't win any Oscars. I thought, it should have won something because Val Kilmer was so good. Now we had to
Mhm.
be careful with this chart because it's a noon chart. So we're only looking at
Right.
the day. So we have to be careful. We can't count the
Yeah.
moon or the angles.
No.
Just saying it for the audience in case they start looking at
Yeah.
that transiting moon on the North Node. It we can't look at it too closely. So
Although, I bet it's not far off.
no, it's the moon will
Yeah.
move 7 degrees, 6, 7 degrees either direction. So it
Mm,
probably wouldn't be that far off.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but anything that stands out to you, Louise, that you want to start with the transits?
Mm. At the Uranus, first, I'm just working my way around. Conjunct Val Kilmer's Sun and Saturn, pretty much, and then Saturn coming up to hit his moon, and then Jim Morrison's South Node. So that's the first two that kind of jump out at me. Yeah.
So we got this
Kind of.
Uranus is a planet of rebellion and of sort of breakthroughs.
Mm,
And I think really for
mm,
Val Kilmer, this movie was a breakthrough. Okay, yeah, he was in Top Gun, but
mm.
his part wasn't that big. Did he play it well in Top Gun? Oh, he was all right. It wasn't bad, but
I
this
liked him in it.
I
But then I
yeah,
liked
okay.
him. But anyway,
I think
yeah.
you'd like him in anything,
Mm,
Louise. But
I
I
do.
think this was his film, and there's no doubt about it. And it
Hmm.
really did make him
Mm,
a star. Before he was just kind of
mm,
this young pop actor, but this made him,
mm.
top of the league in terms of acting goes. And let's talk about that
But
Saturn.
look at that.
Saturn.
Oh yeah. Well, as well though. Jim Morrison was having a Mars return, and on the release, Mars was back returning to his natal Mars
Oh, there
and
we go. Yep.
square his Chiron as well. So maybe it was kind of very, brought some kind of brought him back into preeminence to heal people's vision of who he was and things, because you know what it's like when they've passed on, people get all these ideas in their head. So maybe it was able to kind of bring him back into it, so his soul kind of lived on afterwards. So anyway, but yeah, let's.
That is the beauty of biopics is that, a lot of
Mhm.
biopics are made posthumously and they do
Mm,
definitely bring that person back to popularity. And I think,
mm,
another take on the Chiron might be that, the drug taking, it was a different,
mm.
very different world
Oh
back
yeah.
then. And um, when I went to
Uh-huh.
Père Lachaise Cemetery in Paris, because Jim Morrison died in
Mm.
Paris,
He's
people
buried there. Hmm.
were still leaving cigarettes and glasses of wine and
Hmm.
stuff like that at his gravesite. I mean, and these would be people that probably would not be old enough. They would be young people. I'm trying to say. So he still
Yeah.
appeals to people who wouldn't have experienced him in concert. They were only
Hmm.
going on stories that maybe the parents had told them, or the grandparents even, or
Mm.
the film. So people are still intrigued by
Mm.
the persona of Jim Morrison. And the other thing I wanted to point out was transiting Jupiter wasn't too far away from Jim Morrison's Pluto conjunct the North Node.
Yeah.
You know, so there
Yeah.
is that electric, maybe not electric, but hypnotic energy that Jim Morrison brought in. And I when you see him perform, see Val Kilmer perform as Jim Morrison, you know, you really do get that strong echo sense that, you know, here is, you know, something that you can't quite take your eyes off of.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could imagine what it was like, because clearly I was too young to go and see him live before he died, but you know, I was into music from a very young age, so that's why I got into him. So just that sound, that voice, whoa.
Well, I remember when Janis Joplin died, which is one of the reasons why I think that, you know, she's stuck in my memory. And Jim died not too, because Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin died very close to each other in on the calendar. So I don't
Oh, I
remember so much
remember when
Jim.
they all. I remember when they all died. Yeah, yeah.
Well, I'm not.
I remember my neighbors used to lend me their little record player and their 45s when I was young, and my neighbors, they were teenagers. They went to the Isle of Wight festival where Jimi Hendrix played, and I wanted to go with them. I was 10, and I was so annoyed that my parents wouldn't let me go.
I remember, well, like I said, I'm more of a Janis fan. I mean, I became a Jim fan, but I was more a Janis fan. The reason why I got into Janis, I think, besides hearing about her death, and it's always kind of hush hush because, you know, drug overdose, and my parents didn't want me to hear about it. But I remember my cousin singing me Bobby McGee, and that's how I really got into her music. As well. Now, Janis Joplin, unfortunately for me, hasn't had too many biopics. There was The Rose with Bette Midler that was loosely based, a little bit too loosely based to really call it a biopic on the life of Janis Joplin.
Yeah.
But another example of an actor who really did sing the role. So that was a fantastic film. But let's would you like to make any closing remarks before we move on to Amy Winehouse?
No, just if this kind of inspires people to watch The Doors, go and watch Thunderheart as well. I picked Thunderheart which is not really a biopic, so we go into The Doors because it's Val Kilmer. It's my favorite Val Kilmer movie, but it also has that kind of, you know, that shamanic kind of vibe to it as well, like The Doors house. So you'll kind of get that energy through that movie as well. I've seen that movie so many times. Have you seen it?
No, I haven't seen it. No, you wanted to talk about that one, and I said, oh, we could refer to it, but I haven't quite had a chance to watch it. But I would love to. I on your recommendation, I'll have to watch it. So
I love it.
Okay, we've got another recommendation then. So my choice for this one was also because Amy Winehouse was portrayed by Marisa Abela, and Marisa did sing Amy. And when I watched it, the North London accent was so perfect. You know, it was absolutely.
I haven't seen the movie, but I love it. I loved Amy Winehouse.
Me too. I mean, it was her birthday the other day. I'll try to remember to put a link to the article, and if you want to read more about her astrology and but she had this kind of, you know, tragic life as well. Also, member of the Club of 27, as we said. But so let's look at Amy Winehouse's chart. And what I always found quite unusual about Amy is that, you know, her life was all about her relationships, her songs, you know, everything was about relationships. And all her major planets are in conjunctions. They're like in pairs. So, you know, so I always thought that was like, you know, very, I mean, not that that says anything about her chart really, but it just, I just thought, well, that's a theme that ran through her life.
Well, they're pretty much all in the bottom of the chart as well, which, you know, I think she found it very hard to deal with fame and so on. And you know, having that many planets below the horizon because even the moon and that, they're not much above it. It's usually somebody that's quite introverted and very kind of deals with a lot emotionally inside. So that's fits what I know of her, you know.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
she's got Mars and Venus in Leo.
Mhm.
So, I don't think that any relationship that she had would have a chance of being kept private. She
No.
just could not keep, her love
Mhm.
hidden, so
Yeah.
that she was so
Mhm.
expressive about Blake Civil Fielder, and that it always found
Mhm.
its way into the newspapers, and every little detail of their love
Yeah.
life found its way into the public, and their fights and their getting back
Yeah.
together and the marriages and him going to jail and all that. It that was very much a hallmark of their whole
Mm.
entire love life. But yet
Mhm.
Amy by sun sign was a Virgo. And
Mhm.
not only that, but Virgo conjunct Mercury. So Mercury rules Virgo, conjunct the sun. So,
Mhm.
so her lyrics, I think, are very pointed,
Mm.
in what she's, and
Very.
um, they may be a little bit, all about Blake, but if you listen to them, they tell
Mm.
you exactly what's going on, what's happening
Mm.
in her love life.
Well, and they square her nodes. They
Mm,
square her nodal axis and her north node in Gemini, also Mercury ruled. So, definitely, very much about the words were expressing her story, I would say. Yeah,
mm,
for sure. Yeah. And nothing wrong with that. What's wrong with that? I don't
no, no.
see. Yeah. Yeah.
And then moving on to the other pair, Pluto
Mm,
conjunct Saturn. I don't know about
mm.
you, but I was kind of brought up
That's a bit
in
hard.
astrologically.
Mm.
Pluto conjunct Saturn is the backbone of steel. Camilla Parker Bowles has it on her ascendant.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
somebody else we've talked about recently, it might have been Christopher Walken, has Pluto conjunct Saturn as well. But don't quote me
Mm.
on that. I can't remember for exactly. But it's really quite a harsh thing. It's quite
It is.
it's learning lessons, and every time you learn something, it's kind of like it gets rubbed in your face
Mm.
over and over and over again. Like you can't like
Mm.
make a mistake without somebody coming back and throwing it in your face.
And it's in
So
it's in her house of love affairs and creative self-expression too. So she and maybe I did see the biopic, but anyway, or maybe I just know her story because I was living in England at the time and I liked her. But she seemed to learn an awful lot of really tough lessons through her relationship with Blake, and it affected her career as well. It kind of
mhm.
went up and down as her relationship did as well, didn't it?
Yeah, and then we have
Mhm.
the Jupiter conjunct Uranus.
Mhm. Mm.
Talk about breaking the rules.
Yes. Yeah.
Jupiter, it expands everything it touches, and we got it touching the
Mm.
planet of rebellion. This is someone who's not going to
Mhm.
follow anybody's advice. She's going to do
Yes.
whatever she wants to do, and
Mhm.
they say I should go to rehab. I say no, no, no. you know,
Yeah,
Uh,
in her house of health as well.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
It's and she
Mhm.
had so many health problems. She had emphysema.
Mhm.
She's only 27
Yeah.
years old. To have
Mm.
emphysema, and on top of being extremely underweight, on
Mhm.
top of having quite a serious alcohol issue, as well as all the
Mm.
recreational drugs she was doing that she might have had to use to have the strength to go on stage.
Yeah.
Janis Joplin once said, every night I perform for 10,000 people, and every night I go home alone. I wonder,
Mm.
we don't hear Amy saying that, but I wonder if she felt that. I have
Mm.
nowhere near that kind of audience, but I have got to say, when I give a lecture at a conference, I
Mm.
often think like, wow, okay, I did that, and so what,
Yeah.
I'm, but I want to go to my room and recharge. I can't quite face
Mm.
coming out in public again. I got to recharge and get away. But someone like Amy or Janice don't have that
Mm.
luxury. of withdrawing away from the public. They are constantly pushed out. Now it's time to sign autographs. Now it's time to do this. Next record, keep going, keep moving. So they never get that break that us mere mortals can have.
I know, and that would have been really tough on her, to go back to what I said about most of the planets being in the bottom half of the chart. Yeah. I think she would have found that really emotionally challenging.
And then she had Neptune conjunct the moon in the 7th house.
Yes.
Who is she attracting? She's attracting people who have addiction problems, as so I don't want to point fingers at Blake. I don't want to say, it's all his fault or anything like that. He's gone through enough. He's still on this planet.
Yeah.
He's a couple years ago in interviews, he was still expressing regret and sorrow over this, for the few years he spent with Amy. And I think it's wrong to keep blaming him. He has to be able to move on. Amy made her decisions as well. She made bad decisions. She was in a rough place, and she coped with things as best as she can. But I think an astrologer looking at this might say, Amy, those planets are falling awful close to the south node. Maybe you should find something, maybe you should try a little bit of the Gemini kind of energy over there in the north node. Maybe you could lighten up a little bit.
Definitely.
Come away from all that sorrow, and try to write more joyfully, or more just lightly. Gemini is the really the airy sort of skim the surface kind of energy. And I think that I think an astrologer would tell her, give it a rest, and try to move forward a bit. But unfortunately, she didn't make it. And I don't want to talk about her transits when she was dying, because we make choices that affect our life, and I'm not going to do it. So
no, it's not my way either. I never do that.
Definitely not my way. But let's look at Marisa Abela. Now, this was her first film. She might have done little things before, but Marisa was Amy Winehouse too. And what I noticed was that Chiron conjunct Pluto. So it's the actress.
I saw the Mercury conjunct them.
Oh, right.
So
okay.
both,
So so the Chiron on Pluto brings about the pain and the suffering that would go there. So it draws it out into the open to be healed, because Pluto was able to look at something and go through all those difficulties, and then if the person is able to hold that pain to the light, they can find the healing that they need. But I think Marisa did a good job in helping us to understand what Amy was going through, and bringing it out on the silver screen, so we could sort of understand. Because I think everybody has that sort of feeling, like, what a shame. She was, she died so young, and she had so much more to give, and what a shock it was.
It was. Well, what an amazing voice! Such a voice.
Maybe not a shock so much, because by this time everyone knew how badly she was into drugs. But it's just such a shame.
I think everybody just really wanted her to get through that. I think everybody. That's how it felt to me back then. I remember, everybody was just really kind of urging her on to kind of, deal with her alcohol problems and her other problems, and grow up. And if she'd made it to her Saturn return, she probably would have been fine after that, I think. But clearly wasn't meant to be. So, but I love the Mercury in Capricorn on Amy's moon in the 7th house, because she mastered the voice. So
and then we got Mars on the sun. Mars in Virgo on the sun. The amount of work Amy put into getting her look right. Amy had a Capricorn moon. So she was into the
Mhm.
vintage stuff. But, you know, how
Mhm.
much work can it, I could barely get myself dressed for school most mornings, you know, let alone try to have a style of some sort. But Amy
And
cracked it.
I don't do makeup or anything. So. Not
Amy,
anymore anyway. I used
but
to.
Amy cracked it, and therefore Marisa was tapped into that as well. And what do
Mm.
we think about that sun on Amy's
Oh,
descendant?
descendant.
So the descendant is kind of what you put out there, and therefore what you
Mhm.
attract. So, you know,
Yeah.
Marissa's putting out all that Sagittarius energy, you know,
Mhm.
and Amy, you know,
And
sorry, Amy's putting out the Sagittarius energy, and Marissa's tapping into it and
and
pulling
isn't
it
it
out for us to see.
isn't it interesting that that's conjunct Jim Morrison's sun
Of
and my
course.
Jupiter and Val Kilmer's Jupiter as well. So we're all tied together for this. There you
How
go.
about that? I wasn't really even looking. Okay, so I'm looking now. So Amy Winehouse and I have the same Imam Cheli and Midheaven. My
Mm,
Imam Cheli is
mm,
also, mine is at 10 degrees Leo, and my midheaven's at 10
yeah.
degrees Aquarius. So, you know,
And
there's a match there.
the nodes are there today as we record this.
Oh, amazing. Amazing. And let me see what else.
Mhm.
Marissa's Jupiter is opposite to my Jupiter. So maybe that could be some
Mm,
of the reason why I find her so mesmerizing. And Amy's
mm,
Mars Venus is very close to my moon.
mm.
So, you know,
Oh,
there's an emotional connection there.
yeah.
So,
Amy's Mars is exactly conjunct my Uranus. So,
mm,
and that's in the eighth house. So they both got, both singers that we've looked at today and the actors that play them have that kind of deep soul voice, really kind of very deep. Um,
mm.
yeah.
And that the
Mhm.
actors were able to you know, get that
Mm,
down, you know, and
yeah.
convincingly. I think it's absolutely
Mhm.
incredible.
Me too.
So
Yeah.
let's have a quick look at the transits
Mm,
for when this film was released.
mm.
So Back to Black was released 12th of April last year. Um, and
Oof.
so be
Mars
careful
and
of,
Saturn at the top of the chart. Oh.
yeah, okay. And are they make any
Mhm.
connections to, we got Marissa's, very close to Marissa's Mars, and pulling into that, maybe a
Mm,
little bit wide for some people's taste, but it still pulls in Amy's Mercury Sun.
mm,
It's nice to pull in there. The oh, it would tap into the Jupiter, sorry, Pluto Uranus conjunction for the people born in 60s, in the
oh, it
60s.
would. Yeah, it would.
And look at
Hmm.
that Pluto
Yeah.
conjunct Uranus. Maybe not too unusual, but you know, we got that going out there.
Mm,
The transiting Pluto conjunct Marisa Abela's Uranus
mm,
in Aquarius going on. You know, so
mm.
you know, well timed, I think we could say about
Yeah.
this film. And
Yeah, very well timed. Yeah.
um, so
Did it win any awards?
I think Marissa won a few awards. I don't think they were big
Yeah.
awards, but I think that, you know, she was brand new to the Hollywood scene.
Mm,
And
mm.
you know, we know that debut actors and actresses very seldom um have
Yeah.
the pulling power to get those kinds of awards. And also
Yeah.
I think this is a very small independent production. I don't think it was
Mm,
like the big names, you know, like Oliver Stone directing,
mm.
Val Kilmer.
No, but
But you know,
but
and you know, always controversial is Amy. You know, she's never somebody that, you know, you either like her or you don't like her. I mean, I loved her. I thought, you
yeah,
know, um,
yeah.
but it's yeah,
I did
it's
too. Yeah. I can't imagine anybody not liking her, but I guess it happens. But with those transits, I would imagine, at least for coming from a small studio and things like that, it had the potential to do very well for that studio with those
mm.
transits. I would imagine. Yeah. Hmm.
When I talk about movies, I try not to get too lost in the opinions of the public, you know. It's, I like to talk to
Oh,
the
yeah,
person who likes the
yeah,
film, as well as, you know,
yeah,
my own opinion. Thank you very much. My moon's in Leo. So, I mean, that opinion is worth far more than anybody else's. So, okay, well, Louise, I really thank you for,
Oh,
coming on
thank you.
and talking about this film and for joining
And
Astrology in Real Life.
I'm fascinated to see that I had the connections with this one as well, because I
Yeah.
hadn't seen that before. So, have you found that with the other people you've had on your podcast?
Well, I found it in general, and people start, when I say to
Mm,
them, what do you have in common? They will often
mm,
say that they do have something there. Not everyone likes to
mm.
talk about their chart. So I have to be
Oh,
very respectful and careful that, they
yeah.
may not want to bring anything up, but
Mm,
generally speaking, when people say, I like this person, I always invite them to look
mm,
at the synastry between themselves and the real life
mm.
person, because they're going to find the reason why they're drawn to that person, even if they never
Yeah.
met them. They're attracted to
Yep.
their persona, the way they speak, the way they move. There's something about them that they really like.
Mhm,
Matthew Curry and I were
mm,
talking about Christopher Walken. Both of
mm.
us
Oh,
happen to love Christopher Walken, and I think it was
and
his son.
Curry's a Sagittarius too, isn't he?
Matthew Curry is a Sagittarius. Yes, I can't remember exactly what the connections were, but both of us were just
Mm,
oohing and on over Christopher
mm.
Walken, and
I'm
but then
going to
the
go
word
and watch
connected.
it
Yeah, the movie that Matthew watched was Catch Me If You Can.
because
And the movie,
I love Christopher Walken too, so I must have
my
something.
favorite Christopher Walken film was The Dead Zone. It's a
Mm,
Stephen King
mm,
adaptation. I was talking to Matthew about this, and then we had Steve
mm,
Judd was talking about A Beautiful Mind about John Nash and Russell Crowe,
mm,
and I think
mm,
I was talking about The Imitation Game with um, Benedict
mm.
Cumberbatch playing Alan Turing, and Margaret Gray was talking about Maria Callas, played
Yeah.
by Angelina Jolie. So if you want to hear
Mm.
some, if you haven't quite gotten enough of astrology in real life, have a look at the past episodes. I do have
Yeah.
some, and thank you, Louise, again. I do have some other
Mm,
really great stuff coming
thank
up.
you.
We have the anniversary of Mirror Mirror coming out on the 21st. I'll
Mm.
be talking to my award-winning publisher, Margaret Cahill of the Wessex
Ooh.
Astrologer. I have so many treats in store for you.
Mm.
So keep coming back. This is a brand new podcast. It needs to be a little bit aired out there, it needs to be passed around and people telling you about it. Although I hear it's doing very well for a new
Mhm.
podcast. This is only new
And
for me.
they're pretty timeless, the episodes, so you can just keep sharing them later. It's not like they're,
Yeah,
stuck
absolutely.
to, yeah. Mhm.
And I'm going to get better and
So,
better with the technology. My excuse
mhm.
now is I have these nails that absolutely, they might look nice, but it stops you from typing. And it's, when you got some, the mouse, you get, I can't get a good grip on things. So, but the tech.
I don't think people expect high production these days. I think they kind of like podcasts where people just podcast and talk,
Yes.
you know.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, thank you very much for joining this
Yeah.
episode, and
Thank
come back for more. Grab your popcorn
Mhm.
and wherever you are, whatever you're doing, have a good one, and to the stars. Don't forget to buy our books and write reviews.
Yes.
Thank you, Louise.
Bye.
I'll
Thank
see
you.
you. Bye-bye.
Yeah. Bye bye.